Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us. This is Ben Stone, Director of Arts and Culture with Transportation for America. Thank you for tuning in for a webinar on Washington State Department of Transportation's Artist in Residence program. We're going to get started in just a moment. We traditionally wait about 1 minute past the hour, 1 or 2 minutes past the hour to make sure everyone has a chance to log in. So hold tight for just about 30 more seconds and we will get started. All right, hello again, everyone. This is Ben Stone, Director of Arts and Culture with Transportation for America. We're going to get started with our webinar. You'll be hearing from myself first, then from Vanya Sherman with Art Place America, and finally with Allison Camden with Washdots to tie things up. So as I mentioned, Ben Stone with Transportation for America and our parent organization, Smart Growth America. I run our arts and culture program, work on a number of different projects that some of you are hopefully aware of and have been following. If you are not aware of them, I encourage you to go to our website, smartgrowthamerica.org, and sign up for our e-blasts and track our work there. In addition to, of course, the WashDOT Artist in Residence program that we're going to be talking about today in detail, we have a bunch of other programs that we're currently running, as well as 2 other opportunities we'll be launching in January, just next month, January 2019. 2 other opportunities for artists and other creative people to apply to work with us. I wish I could tell you more details about those, but not quite ready to announce them, so stay tuned and we'll have more info coming on those in the very near future. So we've been running a number of different programs in the arts and culture team for roughly the last 3 years or so, including some research programs, some funding of direct projects in cities across the country, as well as really exploring the ways in which artists are working on transportation projects throughout the United States. And we worked with our great partners, Art Place America, you'll hear from them in just a moment, on our field scan, which is available online on our website on both smartgrowthamerica.org and t4america.org, our 2 websites. I know Donnie will talk about this in more detail, but I did want to mention that the work we're doing with WashDOT really grew out of this year-long scan of, as I mentioned, the ways in which artists are working on transportation projects around the country and really contributing to their success in engaging multiple stakeholders and fostering local ownership, alleviating construction disruption, solving problems from past generations, and so on and so forth. And we found through this research that while a lot of really great work was happening at the municipal level, both with city DOTs and advocates and community organizations, there was far less going on at this intersection of art, culture, and transportation at the state level, which is really where this first ever state level Artist in Residence program grew out of that realization. And I'm sure many of you on the call, on the webinar, are aware, the concept of an artist in residence is not unique to us. We certainly won't take credit for coming up with it. The modern contemporary touch point of reference for this kind of work starting is with the images you see here, Merle Lederman Euclid in New York City, starting with her touch sanitation performance. If you're not familiar with her work, she's had a great retrospective about a year ago at the Queens Museum. Lots of information about her work and her still, as of yet, unpaid, unlike the program we're talking about, unpaid artist in residence program within the New York City Department of Sanitation since the late 70s, been working there on and off since several decades ago. And while that was really one of the only artist in residence taking place at a municipal agency in the United States for quite a while, this approach has really expanded to a number of other different cities, including in Washington State, the Seattle DOT, which has had a number of artists, and most recently a composer, Parl Walsh, at the Fremont Bridge, working as a composer in the small space at the drawbridge in Seattle, and using that as a space to produce work and perform work. In Los Angeles, the Los Angeles Department of Transportation, as some of you might know, Alan Nakagawa was the first ever artist in residence at that Department of Transportation, earned one of my favorite headlines of the last year or two, why you should stick your hand in this mystery box at the bus stop. Normally not the best move, but in this case, totes fine. Worked to develop a project around the sense of smell and people's memory and try to improve people's association with riding the bus throughout Los Angeles, but also worked on storytelling and other visual kinds of projects, worked with the ghost bike community in Los Angeles as well. We've had Alan on past webinars that you can find on our website and some of our blog posts too. So I just want to quickly go over some of the basics of course, the Washdots Artist in Residence program, the project we're here to talk about before I hand things off to Danya and Allison to talk about their relationship to this project. So to start, these are the 4 partners that are really making this program happen. Art Place America is, of course, providing funding, some leadership, and some thinking through of how to structure this program. Washington State Department of Transportation, of course, is hosting the artists or small collective of artists. Transportation for America, my organization, under the umbrella of Smart Growth America, is administering this program. And our partners under also Smart Growth America, the State Smart Transportation Institute, or SSTI, is advising us and will be part of the team that will be managing this project over the next year. Might be obvious, but just in case it's not, this program will be based in Olympia, Washington, which is where Washdot has their headquarters. And it will involve travel across Washington State, since it's not focused just on Olympia, but of course in the entire state of Washington, as well as some travel to conferences and to some meetings in other cities as well throughout the United States. Most of this information is on our website, so I'm not going to read every single item on the next several slides, but this is really what the artist residency entails. There will be regular check-ins with the team, which will include those of us on the call as well as a few other people. There'll be quarterly in-person meetings where some of us who are outside of Washington will travel to Washington to get together with the selected artists. The artists will be working roughly half-time, 20 hours a week, and will be maintaining a working presence within Washdot's office and possibly in some of the division offices. We'll be tracking the work hours and project expenses. They'll be documenting the work that they're doing. It's a big part of our interest in doing this project is really to expand this approach to other DOTs around the country. In order to do that, we need good documentation of what has actually happened, what's worked, what hasn't worked, what has been learned. And then the artist should be prepared to present these lessons, again, to help us spread the word about the program after it is wrapped up and while it's going on as well. The selection criteria is really based on the application process, based on, of course, artistic merit and professional qualifications. We're looking for people who have not necessarily, of course, been an artist in residence at a state DOT, since this is the first one, but somebody who has similar kind of experience working within governmental agencies, understands complex bureaucracies, or at the very least is very curious about working with complex bureaucracies, has a collaborative work style. We're not necessarily looking for somebody who's done solo studio-based work only. Someone who's interested in working both with other artists and, of course, with other engineers and policy folks and people outside their own discipline. Looking for someone who's a great communicator so they can explain the work they're doing and communicate between very different kinds of people. Looking for somebody who's accustomed to working with people that come from a wide variety of backgrounds, understand what it means to work with a traditionally underserved community. As I mentioned before, looking for somebody who has experience working with governmental agencies, though it is not required. Looking for someone who's at the very least curious about that. And then at the end, I mentioned once again, insatiable curiosity is really one of the most important criteria of the person we are looking for. Eligibility is someone who's over the age of 18, who's eligible to work in the United States. We're not sponsoring green cards or visas or anything of that sort for people outside the United States. Must be able to already be in Washington or get to Washington. And we are not restricting this to just visual artists, performing artists, videographers, dancers, et cetera, are all considered fine as well. Budget, we want to be very transparent about the money involved in this. The artist would pay a stipend over the course of a year of $40,000 total. In addition to that, on top of that, there's another $25,000 really meant for project implementation. That's up to the artist and the team. They'll be managing the artist's discretion to what that'll be spent on, but it could be materials. Could be other things related to production of a project or a proposal. And there's a separate stream of funding for travel both within Washington as well as to some of the meetings I mentioned before outside of Washington. A couple more slides. This is the schedule. The most important thing, of course, at the top in bold is that the deadline to apply is coming up on January 7th in just a few weeks. We won't accept any applications after that. We will be reviewing applications throughout January and February, and by the end of February, we will have an artist selected with the goal of starting the residency sometime in March. I think Allison will talk more about this, but there will be rotations throughout different divisions within WashDOT for the first 4 months, roughly the first third of the program. And then the next 8 months will be spent actually developing a project and implementing a project, or projects plural perhaps, with the residency then ending in February of 2020. Application process is pretty straightforward. It is available on our website. You can see there the URL is on the screen, smartgrowthamerica.org. You can find it just by Googling it or typing in that direct URL on the screen there. It requires you to submit personal information, answer a few questions about your work and kind of support you need, ideas you might have about doing this kind of work, as well as submitting a resume and work samples as well. So with that wraps up everything for me. I'm happy to answer questions at the end. We'll be taking questions throughout. You should be able to type in questions on the chat bar on the left of your screen, and we'll come back to those in a few minutes. But I wanted to hand things off to Vanya Sherman with Our Place to take it from here. Vanya, please take it away.
Great. Thank you so much, Ben. And hello, everyone. My name is Vanya Sherman. I have been working with Our Place America as a consultant for the last 3 years on the research strategies team. We are so thrilled and excited about being able to partner with Transportation for America, the Washington State DOT, the State Smart Transportation Initiative, in making what we think is the first Artist in Residence program at a state agency happen. I think we've seen how impactful these kinds of programs can be at municipal agencies and other places, and just so excited to be bringing this work to helping support vibrant transportation systems and communities. So I just wanted to speak really briefly for a few minutes about why we're excited to support this program and sort of some of the national level work that we've been doing over the past few years that is kind of the context. So for those who don't know, Our Place America is a 10-year collaboration of foundations, federal agencies, and financial institutions. Our mission is to position arts and culture as a core sector of community planning and development. And our vision is healthy, equitable, and sustainable communities. So that's why we exist. Over the past 8 years, we started in 2010, and we are planned to sunset or close up shop in 2020. We have been pursuing 4 lines of work to our grant-making programs, the National Creative Placemaking Fund and the Community Development Investments Initiative. And then this work, which takes place in our research and field building area, to share best practices, tools, and knowledge with practitioners and stakeholders to try to help support the efficacy and just understanding of arts in community development work. And to do that in an intentional way, we developed something called the Community Development Matrix, which breaks the community development sector down into 10 areas. They align with research that we did showing how fields have become professionalized and how agencies are structured, how funding works, so that we can work intentionally sector by sector to support arts integration in each. And of course, we recognize that the world is multi-layered, so great work touches all 10 sectors, but as a strategy, this is kind of the way that we've approached the work. And within our research strategies team, what we've done is to work with a strategic partner in each of these 10 areas, in this case, Transportation for America, to first conduct research, so doing a field scan, which Ben already spoke about, then bringing a group of people together kind of as a focus group of advisors, a combination of artists and planners and transportation engineers and others, to review the research that we did and try to start to think about some recommendations for how to further the integration of arts and culture into transportation and community development. And one of the things that I think we heard a lot of at that meeting and something that we've been thinking about is just the need to support more pilots and experiments and examples of successful artists engaged in transportation work. So we were so excited to have the opportunity to support this program as part of that. And it builds on some of the research that Ben talked about, which I'd encourage you to look at. And what we're also really excited about is the partnership with State Smart Transportation Initiative will allow us to think about how these lessons that come out of the program can be shared with other state DOTs around the country and to help support arts in more places around the country. So that's it for me, and I'll turn it over to Allison.
Excellent. Thanks so much. So I'm Allison Camden. I'm a Deputy Assistant Secretary here at the Washington State Department of Transportation, and I wanted to start off just giving a bit of an overview of Washdots system that we steward for the citizens of Washington State. So I think a lot of folks, when they think of the State Department of Transportation, they think of highways, and we certainly operate and maintain a lot of those. As you can see, 18,715 highway lane miles are something that we manage and operate and maintain for our citizens. We own a whole lot of bridges, but we also own, this slide is old, we own 23 ferries. We just put a new ferry into service this year, and we're serving almost 25 million people a year on our ferry system, which is the largest in the nation and the third or fourth largest in the world, depending on how you categorize it. We're also partners with 32 transit systems. We own 16 small airports. We have a number of miles of bike lanes and sidewalks within our right-of-way. And we also own a freight line rail system in eastern Washington, and we are the sponsors of the Amtrak Cascades intercity passenger rail service that operates between Vancouver, BC and Eugene, Oregon. We are a co-sponsor of that with Oregon DOT. So we are really a truly multimodal system here in Washington State, and we see ourselves as stewards of that system. In the past, I think WashDOT, along with a lot of state DOTs, are focused on building out the system, building of highways, and now we're transitioning more into a period of being a steward of the system we've already built. There will be some additions to the system, but we're really focused on maintaining what we have and operating what we've got as efficiently as possible. Wanted to talk a little bit about our organization. We are large, as you can see with this organizational chart. We've got around 7,000 employees across the state. Our headquarters is here in Olympia, Washington, but we have offices all around the state, including in 6 regions. So the artists in residence will be based in Olympia at our headquarters, but we'll be doing rotations, as Ben mentioned, through several different divisions, and that will involve some travel around the state. Things I did want to mention while this slide is up is our 6 region offices. It's kind of in the middle bottom half of the page with our Northwest Region office, which is headquartered in Shoreline, just north of Seattle. Our North Central Region office is based in Wenatchee. Olympic Region is in Tumwater, just south of Olympia, Washington. Southwest Region's in Vancouver, so in the Portland-Vancouver metro region. South Central Region is based in Yakima Union Gap, and Eastern Region is based in Spokane. And so we're going to be looking at opportunities for those for the artists and residents to be able to spend some time in hopefully all of those regions, or perhaps we'll do a rotation that focuses on just on 1 or 2 of them. The organization I help oversee is just to the right of our regions, which is multimodal development and delivery, and we are kind of a policy function of headquarters where we have all of our engineering divisions like development and construction and traffic operations, along with all of our modal offices like public transportation, active transportation, rail, freight, ports. And what we've been doing over the last year since a reorganization has happened is really trying to help bring those different folks together and really look at innovative multimodal solutions to our transportation challenges. You can see we've got our ferry system that's also based in Seattle, along with some of our transit and tolling folks that are part of our urban mobility and access, which is on the more on the left side of the page. And then we also have our Assistant Secretary for Finance and Administrative Services, and that's kind of more of the, the guts of the operation, if you will. So our finance, our accounting, our IT, our budget folks, those are all based here in Olympia. Wanted to talk a little bit about our strategic plan. We have just launched an updated strategic plan, and as you can see, our vision is that Washington State travelers have a safe, sustainable, and integrated multimodal transportation system, with our mission being to provide safe, reliable, and cost-effective transportation options to improve communities and economic vitality for people and businesses. You can see the values we have. And then our goal areas are something that we're really focusing heavily on as the way that we're going to meet those values, meet our mission and vision. So inclusion, practical solutions, and workforce development have been a focus for the department for the last 3 years, and we're kind of doubling down on those as focus areas. And I don't want to delve too deep into the weeds on those, but kind of at a high level, inclusion is really about having an inclusive workforce, a diverse workforce. We want to be doing business with all businesses that are qualified and eligible to do business with us, so not just the same contractors and subcontractors we've worked with in the past. We really want to be doing business with anyone who's able to do business with us. We want to create opportunities for folks. We want to engage our communities in the right kind of ways, and we really want our workforce to look like the communities we serve, which is varied across the state. On practical solutions, this is really about delivering our mission with the budget that we've got. We've got resource constraints, and we want to be using our dollars as smartly as possible. So whether we're planning a project, developing or building a project, or managing a bike ped system, we really want to be using our resources wisely, making sure we're finding the right solution at the right time in the right place for the right cost, working with our community partners. I think a lot of times in the past, WashDOT, like many state DOTs, has been guilty of kind of deciding what's the best transportation solution for a community, and we're really focused now on working with our community partners to identify what the real problem is and work together on what's the best solution given the resources we have at hand. And then on workforce development, we do really want to be an employer of choice. We want a modern workforce that looks like the people we serve, and we want to retain the quality workers we have. And so we've got a big focus as far as talent development and pipelines, and really trying to engage our employees. We are very excited about the opportunity to host an artist in residence. We've got a lot of different offices and divisions within the department. I think there's a lot of great opportunities. What we're hoping to get out of this program is some new innovative way of thinking. We've got lots of challenges like any big organization, and hoping that bringing someone in with a totally different perspective. We've got a lot of engineers, we have a lot of planners, we have a lot of finance folks, but bringing someone in with a just totally different view and helping us kind of look at some of the problems we've got and maybe finding some new and innovative solutions, whether that's a new process of doing things, whether that's a new way of engaging our communities through public meetings, or if it is a work of art we can incorporate into a project or somewhere within the department. We're really excited to get the right person on board and have them help us, just figure out how to do things better and differently and better serve the public. So I think that's my piece, Ben. I'll turn it back over to you.
Thank you so much, Allison. Just in closing, I wanted to mention it's always a little bit tricky as a national organization to have favorite cities, favorite states, anything like that. So by no means do we have any favorites. However, we're really excited that we're doing this work with WashDOT in Washington State. We've done Smart Growth America and Transportation for America, and SSTI have done lots of work within Washington State and with WashDOT over the years. And there's a reason why we're working out there, both because of the multimodal nature of WashDOT, as Allison mentioned, and the fact that Washington has a creative governor, creative state DOT interested in doing an experimental kind of project like this to try to drive positive results. So I wanted to thank WashDOT for taking this challenge on, and thank our place for, of course, providing the funding to make it happen. We are willing to answer any and all questions that we're, of course, capable of answering now. Before we do that, please go ahead and type those in if you haven't already. I think my colleague Sophie Schoenfeld, the other half of the Arts and Culture team at Transportation for America, will read those out to us in just a minute. If you're listening to this live, then of course please remember the deadline of January 7th and apply by that deadline. If you're listening to a recording and it's before that deadline, strongly encourage you to apply as well. If you're listening to the recording after January 7th, sorry this opportunity has passed, but please stay tuned for other upcoming opportunities as well. One of the other opportunities I mentioned before is actually another artist in residence at another state DOT that fortunately can't mention which state it is yet, but that'll be getting announced in the coming new year in 2019 very soon. So with that, I'll hand things over to Sophie to ask us some of your questions.
Great, thanks, Ben. The first question I have is pretty general, but just if there's any application advice that you all might be able to pitch in for those looking to apply.
I can try to take that one first and see if Don or Allison have any suggestions. I think my advice, it sort of depends on who the artist is that's applying, but just because of the nature of working within a large governmental bureaucracy is so different than other kinds of solo residencies where it's really entirely based on the artistic quality. We're looking for, of course, both artistic quality, but also the ability to work within complex situations. So whatever work or stories you can share or past examples that point to working within complex situations where lots of people have competing views, there's a public component with the public having their own perspectives and opinions about things, and showing how one is able to navigate that kind of world is really crucial. So I think focusing on that is important. Allison or Danya, do you have anything to add to that?
No, this is Allison. I think you really covered it.
Yeah, same here.
Great. We have a few more questions coming through. We'll try to get to all of them. This is one asking about who will be on the committee to recommend and or select the final artist in residence.
Yeah, it's a good question. We don't know the exact people yet. Working with Alice and others at Washdot, so I can't necessarily give the exact names, but it'll be definitely weighted strongly in favor of Washdot. We want to make sure that Washdot gets someone they're comfortable with, as well as the other partners working on the project that I mentioned before.
Great, thanks. So one other question that was just asked is if the speakers could provide some clarity on what based in Olympia could look like. So for example, if someone has lived in Twist but works all over the state, would the artist be expected to move to Olympia for the duration of the project, or I guess what type of flexibility is there to be in Washington state more broadly?
Allison, do you want to speak to that one?
Sure. So our headquarters is in Olympia, and so we would expect this person to be largely working out of our office here, is where we'll be providing, a desk, a computer, working here. The first 4 months, about 3 to 4 months, would be the rotations around the state, and the rest of the time would be here in Olympia. So it'd be up to the individual person and their ability to be here. So that, really, in order to, I think, with a large bureaucracy and getting to know folks and really understanding what we do, you really need to be here, for the time, for the number of hours in a week, not, working remotely.
Yeah, and I imagine this is not the question, but just so it's clear, there isn't a residency requirement in terms of living within the boundaries of Olympia or anything like that. If one lived near Olympia, Washington, of course, is a rather large state. This isn't Delaware, Rhode Island, or something like that. But if someone lived nearby and could get to the offices in Olympia, that could be acceptable as well.
Great. One other question that just came through is asking about whether this job is part or full-time.
It's been structured as a half-time, so part-time, 20 hours per week position, and that was done for a number of reasons, largely because we anticipate, and having spoken to a lot of artists and a lot of other programs, similar programs in cities across the country, a lot of people who do this work have their own separate practice they don't necessarily want to give up. We know we're hiring someone for just 1 year, and so we don't want necessarily to force someone to give up teaching or individual work that they're doing themselves as well. So that is structured to allow people to continue doing some other practice in addition to the residency.
Great. So I think that is all of the questions for today, but if there are additional questions, please feel free to email Ben Stone at bstone@smartgrowthamerica.org.
Great. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. We look forward to reading your applications by January 7th.